Episode 4, Season 2 of The Last of Us is out, and in Dina's own words, what is wrong with Seattle? Welcome back to Movies Good, Internet Bad. I'm Corey, that's Shane. We're going to talk about the TV first, then we're going to talk about the game later. Shane, let's dive into this thing, man. What'd you think?
Let's do it. So we start with Josh Peck with the jump scare right off the bat. Every time I see him in a non-comedic role, I'm just like, it's Josh. It's Drake and Josh.
Jake and Josh,
And
man.
even he's a soldier here, but yeah, he's telling some story about Jizz Boy and the origin of that name. But Isaac interrupts him because they ask why he keeps calling the civilians voters, and
Mhm.
Isaac very sadly says that it's because we took away their rights, and it's
Yes.
like an irony. They call them voters because they can't vote.
Yep.
So then they get stopped by this group of people who they think are the wolves. So we're immediately led into the fact that the wolves are kind of against Fedra. This is all flashback, by the way, like way
Yep.
way before.
2018.
Yes, 11 years prior. And so Isaac meets up with this person and says, "Are you?" I forget the name that he says. And once he confirms that, he tosses grenades in the truck and blows them all to hell.
Blows his
Uh,
people up.
yeah, and then points. He turns to the one guy who kind of questioned the story that Josh Peck was saying,
Mhm.
because maybe there's a glimmer of rebellion in him, and says, "Now make your choice."
Make your choice. Yeah.
Yeah, so uh, right off the bat, we know that Isaac is a bad dude, and the wolves were kind of revolutionaries in their town in
Yep.
Seattle.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeffrey Wright is he's a monster. I love him. He's so
He's
good.
great.
His voice is unbelievable. Just that deep baritone
Yeah,
timbre that he's got. He said in the behind the scenes that the way the show might make it look is like he's turning his back on Fedra, but in Isaac's brain, it's more of the other way around, where Fedra has turned their back on everyone else, and
yeah,
he's seen the light and
yeah,
going in the correct direction. So
yep,
really
exactly.
interesting start to the episode and a great introduction to his character.
Yeah, especially given what we see from him later in this episode as
Oh
well, right?
boy, yes,
We'll get there. So
yeah.
then we get to Dina and Ellie, who are in Seattle. Day one is what they put on the title.
You got
So
a
they're
point.
looting. Yeah,
You
yeah,
got to point
yeah,
at the
yeah,
screen when you see
yeah.
that. If
You
you're a
know,
game
we're
person.
not at the game section yet.
Ah, shit. Well, we messed that up already. Anyway,
Anyways, so Dina is looting and she finds something, and I wonder what that something could
what
be.
what
But
could it
it's
be?
off screen, and my wife immediately knew what it was. But because we're not in that section of the story yet, I'm not going to tell you yet. But my wife was like a dead ringer for that prediction. So
Shane, what could it be?
yes, yes, exactly.
Oh,
Okay, okay. So
I'm
now they're
source of bad jokes
exploring
tonight.
the Capitol Hill area of Seattle, and they
Yeah.
run across all of these rainbow flags, these pride flags. And obviously, since they have not grown up in the prior to infected timeline, they have no idea what a pride flag is,
Yep.
or any of that. Especially because they're living in Jackson, Wyoming, which I would assume would have way less of a tolerance for LGBTQ
Likely.
pride flags in
Yeah.
that part of the country, right?
Yep.
Capitol Hill, if you've ever been to Seattle, is like the most liberal part of Seattle.
Oh,
Like
is
there's
it? Okay.
rainbows everywhere. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. We
All right.
explored that area when we went several years ago, and yeah, it's the sidewalk is rainbows. It's really over the top
Nice.
um, about it. Um, so yeah, they see this TV station with WLF on it,
Hmm.
and Ellie's immediately like, "Let's go, we got this." And Dina's like, "No, no, the calm and collected one. We have to wait until night, and then we
Yep.
travel by night."
Yeah, what does she
Which
say?
Dina
Like
is the smart half of it.
she says, if they put their name on the billboard that large, they kind of know that people are going to come or whatever.
Yeah,
They want people to come. So yeah.
yeah, it's an advertisement. It's a warning, right?
Yep.
Uh, yeah. So they hole up in this music store and
Yeah.
they're exploring around, and Ellie finds a guitar. Of course, a guitar has been a main motif throughout this season, and she picks it up, tunes it, and starts to play Take On Me. And I thought Bella had a really good voice in this.
Yeah.
Good
So
cover.
they said in the behind the scenes that she actually plays guitar in real life and she learned the song, and that whole day was basically just her serenading Isabella Merced with a camera behind both of them. And
Nice.
yeah, it was really cool, man. It was lit really beautifully with the
Yeah. It's
The
like
light
angelic.
pouring in
Yeah.
behind her. I love how it was just like a perfectly preserved guitar. It even had like
She
the
kisses the like
dehumidifier
little gel
bags.
pack things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which was neat. And just the little line in there about how, Joel really taught you well. You had a great teacher. Yeah, I did. Blah 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 blah
Yeah.
blah.
It's all
Awesome.
callbacks to her last couple conversations that she had with Joel, which was about fixing her guitar
Yep.
and all of the trauma and the grief that comes along with that. So
Yep.
good little full circle moment there.
Yeah.
Uh, Ellie is still processing all of that trauma, obviously.
Oh
So like
yes.
this is but we get to see her a little bit happier in this, like
Yeah.
remembering a little bit more of the good times with
Yeah.
Joel. And
And Bella might be kind of the star of that scene, but it's really cool to see Isabella Merced as Dina falling in love with Ellie in the moment, and the
yeah,
tears welling up, and like that's a two-handed performance, and it's
hmm
really quite good.
yeah, it's the acting when you're not speaking is so
Mhm.
crucial, right? And so that scene, she doesn't really have any lines, but you can just see it in her eyes when she's
Yeah.
watching it. Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, I love that little scene. And like, it's stuff like this that I love about The Last of Us as a franchise in general that, you've got all of this terrible nonsense going on, but then there's this just little scene playing Take on Me on a guitar,
Yep.
right? It like
Yep.
it's the little moments there. But then we get to Isaac in the present day, and he's not such a good dude anymore. But he is telling this story about when he was a young man. He loved to go to Williams Sonoma and look at the pans, and of course, he is using this pan to torture this poor Seraphite.
Yeah.
Uh, and we are immediately presented with a lot of backstory here. This he keeps referring to them as scars, but
Mhm.
the other guys keep saying Seraphites. So they
Seraphites,
refer
yep.
to themselves as Seraphites, but the wolves refer to them as scars. And he's trying to figure out where they're going to attack next by torturing him with the pan. But obviously, this guy's not going to give any information up. But he says, like, you won't win. And Isaac's like, well, of course we'll win because we have all the machine guns. But he's saying your ideology is what's wrong.
Mhm.
People are switching to come join us, but none of us are coming to join you. So
Correct.
eventually it'll be a war of attrition where enough wolves will convert to the Seraphites
Yep.
that they would win, even though the weaponry is much greater on the wolf side of things.
Correct.
We
Which
get some more
Isaac,
backstory too about the chicken and egg scenario of this truce that was broken.
yeah.
Who broke the truce? We don't really know. The wolves think the Seraphites broke it. The Seraphites think the wolves broke it, and
Yep.
it just goes the cycle of hatred, the cycle of revenge, right?
Yeah. And then Isaac just gets fed up and goes ahead
Shoots
and
the guy.
pops
Yeah,
him. And then we get the great scene in the hallway where it's the guy from the flashback that he
exactly.
said, make your choice to. And he
Yeah,
is just dead behind the eyes. And he's
yeah,
like, Scar got what he deserved, fucking animal or whatever. And,
yeah.
and the delivery is just so dead inside. I
hmm
loved it. I thought it was great.
And I think what's interesting about that is that they start out in the beginning of this episode with the good intentions of
Hmm.
the Fedra was the bad guys, and then they have kind of become the bad guys,
Yep. Yep.
which very much a theme of this show in
The whole
general is that
franchise.
good guys and bad guys can go back and forth, and there really are no good guys and bad guys in this show. It's
Reminds me of a
all
monologue
perspective.
from the character DJ from Star Wars The Last Jedi.
Oh
Good
gosh.
guys, bad guys. Anyway, I digress. Moving on.
Everyone just turned off the review because you mentioned The Last Jedi, I'm pretty sure.
Hey, we're about halfway through the video. Now is a great time to go ahead and click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you like what we're talking about here, click the like button, drop us a comment below because comments, for some reason, push the algorithm and more people see the video. So, Shane, continue. The ad read is over.
I love how you slipped that in after a Last Jedi reference. It's perfect.
Yes, absolutely. After they've already turned it off, that's what I'm telling them to subscribe. Doing great.
Anyways, let's get
Host
back
of the year here.
to the episode. So Dina and Ellie get to the TV station. Something interesting here is they mentioned that somebody has already broken into the TV station and they're just
Mhm.
following in the footsteps. We don't know who that is, but just found that interesting that they pointed that out.
Yep.
But they go into the TV station and find out immediately that the Seraphites, which is that group in the prior episode that they had seen in the forest because of the symbol, the same symbol on them, had killed all of these wolves and hung them up in the TV station.
Yeah. And
And she
they're
mentions
like
that none of
guts,
these people are the people that were from Jackson, right?
and their guts are hanging out of them.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not
not.
just that they're hung, but like their intestines are just like all
Yeah,
over. Like, it's nasty work. It is
yeah.
nasty work.
The amount of violence that is clearly going on between these two factions. There's a lot of
Mhm.
hatred between them, and we're
Yeah.
really learning that. And something I liked about this episode is that as you go further, Dina and Ellie are realizing that they have bit off much more than they can chew.
Oh yeah.
This is way more than they signed up for. They were like,
Yep.
"Oh, it's just this tiny group of wolves that we're going to go find," and it turns out
Nope.
it's a full scale war.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not great for Dina and Ellie here, but we get some other callbacks here because, of course, the wolves eventually show up because they had radioed for backup and
Mhm.
they have to hide from them. And Ellie eventually uses the training that she had used in uh, episode 1 of this
Mhm.
season
Yep.
to take down the guy while Dina eventually catches up to her. So then they run away and they get into the subway.
Oh
And this sequence was super
man.
cool. I loved this
Woo.
sequence.
God,
But
not even talking about the game connection,
mhm,
right? Just the massive set, the way they filmed it, the claustrophobia of just the infected being just on every direction, skeletons everywhere. Just man, like horror filmmaking at its finest.
yeah,
Just really good stuff.
and like the action was good. Like everyone
Mhm.
complained about not enough infected in the first season, and we've gotten so many
So
in this
much.
season, right?
Yeah.
But that little action sequence was great, and I thought it was staged well, and like all of the tension of like, are they gonna get their legs up out of the
Yeah.
subway, and
Yeah,
all
yeah,
of
yeah.
that stuff was
Yep.
played and directed very well. Also, the lighting of the flares coming in,
So
and then
good.
the callback where Dina is counting the number of clickers because in
Mhm.
the prior episode it was like 2 and so they could
Yep.
take them on, but this is like she gets to 5 and then she's like, there's more than
Oh, shit.
5. There's so many. So they are, yeah, they're screwed. But anyways, they get to this the turnstile, which is everyone's least favorite part of a subway. uh,
Absolutely. Yes.
Anyone, whoever directed this, has clearly been to New York or somewhere with a subway, because that is everyone's least favorite part of the subway. But they get stuck there, and Ellie sticks out her hand to block an infected and gets bit.
Yeah.
Then they escape, and Dina immediately is like, wait, why are you not reacting to this at all?
Yep.
Because every person she's seen that's been bit in the past has obviously been traumatized by it.
Yeah. Yeah,
But they
yeah.
hole up in a theater, and Dina pulls a gun on her because she knows
Yep.
she's infected now. She's got to kill her. And Ellie talks her out of it, which I think it, because we know that Ellie is immune, this scene, you have to think about it a little bit more from Dina's
From
perspective,
Dina's perspective.
because
Yeah.
in that world, someone gets bit, you shoot them. And
Yes.
her being able to talk Dina out of it is huge,
Mhm.
because that is what they have known for their entire life,
Correct.
basically.
Yeah.
And Ellie gives a pseudo okay plan where she's like, I'm gonna just sit on this couch, and if I look infected at all, you shoot me, but
Yep.
if I look fine, then and then she wakes up, and she does like an infected like a little shimmy,
Yeah, because
and
she's
she's like,
getting
no, it's
water
just the water.
droplets hit on her head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was good.
Yep.
um but then she is like, can I show you, blah blah blah. So Dina eventually realizes that Ellie is in fact immune. She's telling the
Yep.
truth, and I love this lighting technique because you can't see Dina's face
Can't
because
see
she's
her
got the
face.
flashlight.
Yeah.
She shuts the flashlight off, and then you can see her reaction. She's
Yep.
obviously still traumatized by the whole thing. But then Dina responds with her deepest, darkest secret, which is that she is pregnant.
She's
So that
pregnant.
was what she had found earlier in the episode, was a pregnancy test.
A lot of them.
Again, my wife picked up on that instantly, and she has not played the game or anything, so like she knew that instantly. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, there was a surplus of pregnancy tests in that pharmacy apparently.
Yes.
'Cause she just kept pulling those fuckers out of the
Yeah,
bag.
yeah. But because they have known uh, each other's deepest, darkest secrets now, they finally just get it on
That's it.
uh,
Cue the
right
Marvin Gaye.
there.
Let's get it on. That's it. And it was a really well done sex scene, I think. You
Yeah,
know, like,
thought it worked.
there's a lot of times when it's not man woman, where for some reason they change the way they shoot it, and they kind of sanitize it, and they didn't really here. And I
Yeah.
thought that that worked really well. So
Yeah, this show goes full on into LGBTQ everything
oh yeah,
throughout
yeah,
this
for sure.
entire show. I am speaking from game experience, but that the game, it was never shy on any of those topics. So
No, no.
seeing it embrace it here is also great, right? They
Yep.
they didn't have to tone it down for a wider audience. They're just going for it, right?
Yeah, man.
So then we get the post-coitus talk. One thing I found funny here is they didn't like the morning breath, and so they used beef jerky
Beef
to fix
jerky.
it, which is
Well,
the exact opposite of what I would pick.
they don't exactly have Mentos, Shane.
No, they don't.
So
I just it's those little details that, like, in
mhm.
post-apocalypse, how do you fix morning breath? Well, the most potent flavor that we have is beef, right? We don't
how,
have
how do you fix a
mints.
hangover? You just drink more. Right? That's it's the same concept applies.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
make your breath
exactly.
more disgusting, and they'll be disgusting together. And
Right,
uh,
right.
Ellie was the big spoon, which is appropriate because she then says that she's going to be a dad, which
Yes.
cracked me up a
I
little bit.
People are gonna complain about that line. I'm sure it'll be all over Twitter, but, like,
I don't care.
that's such an Ellie thing to say. It's just, like, so in her character to make a joke like that.
Yep.
But yeah, I thought this was interesting because it gets behind Dina's decision making throughout all of this, right?
Hmm.
Where she tried to make it work with Jesse, but it wasn't quite working. She was scared of being gay, or in this case, I believe she says she's bi.
Yeah, yeah.
She was
She likes
scared of
girls and
that
boys.
because her mom would not allow it.
Yep.
And it took the bite from Ellie and seeing that she might die to give her the strength
Hmm.
to, come out. Where she says, Ellie, you're super brave. Not everyone's as brave as you. And she's like, I'm not brave. I'm just obvious, which
Obvious.
it's about right.
Yep.
She just can't, she's not good at hiding things, right?
No, not at all.
And we've seen that, right? She lies about a lot of things and is really bad at lying. So, like,
Hmm.
why lie?
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yep. Yep.
But then we get the radio interrupting this conversation, and they hear the word Nora on the radio. And Nora
Yes.
is one of the people who was with Abby in Jackson. So she
Hmm.
knows if you can get to Nora, you can get to Abby. So then they go and overlook the battle and realize that this is a huge war that they're
Yep.
walking themselves into. And the place where Nora is in the middle of the
Right in the middle
firefight.
of it. Yep.
And Ellie offers to go by herself. Dina, of course, refuses that offer. It was an interesting little discussion point around, like, survival instincts, right? Like, you're
Hmm.
pregnant, you got to stay here. But she's like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
doing this together. But yeah, that is how we end the episode. And
Yeah.
overall, I thought this was really solid. A
Yeah.
lot of good action set pieces. It moved the plot quite a bit.
A lot,
Good
actually. Yeah.
emotional stakes. Now, Dina being pregnant is such a huge thing now because she is that much more vulnerable, right?
Yeah. 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 For sure. And it's not just one life; it's two now
Yeah,
that we're talking about. So, to answer your question from before, this was directed by Kate Herron, who directed the entirety of season one of Loki, which is probably still my favorite Marvel season of TV to date. So I was not surprised when I saw good action and
yeah,
uh, she's good at working within that system, right? Because she's done that dance before. So and again, written by Craig Mazin. So we got a couple minutes left. Let's talk about all the little Leo point at the TV moments that we had with the video game.
yeah. So if you've not played the game, we'll talk about the comparisons. We might put spoilers in here, so this would be a time to catch us next week if you've not played the game. But
Like, subscribe,
uh,
comment. Thanks. Bye.
but yeah, this was straight up from the game.
Yeah.
It was as if they just faithfully recreated everything from the
Hmm.
game in this episode. And Kate Hearn actually said that she's a big fan of the game, so you could
Yes.
really see that coming out in this episode because Seattle Day One, of course, is like a big sequence in the game, and of course they're
Mhm.
compressing the time. Like,
Yeah.
Seattle Day One in the game is
It's a
several
long
hours
time.
of content.
Yeah.
But here it's compressed into an hour. I did like the Isaac backstory that was
Mhm.
not in the game.
Yep. For
We
sure.
we heard about Isaac, but we didn't know enough about him, and they're really expanding upon that conflict. It seems because
Hmm.
in a game you're on the perspective of Ellie the whole time, but in a show you can be on the perspective of Isaac. Like, there's
Yes.
nothing preventing you from doing that.
Yep.
So I thought that was interesting. The rainbow thing was straight out of the game.
Mhm.
If you linger in that area for a long period of time, you'll get Dina asking, "What's with all the rainbows?"
Yes.
So it's like straight out of the game. Take on Me, straight out of the game as
Big
well.
moment from the game too.
And a lot of
Yeah.
people complained about that moment in the game when it came out, but I thought it was it never bothered me in the game, and I thought it was done even better here.
Mhm.
So I'm
Yep.
just fine with that. Um, the Scar Seraphite thing, I thought expanding on that is great.
Yeah.
Obviously, we get a lot more of the wolf backstory in this, but we get a lot of it through Abby in the game too.
Yes. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So, but getting the Isaac backstory is also super important.
Yeah.
Um, the
The TV
TV,
station, yeah,
it was
that
straight at, like, looked identical to
and
playing that in the
those
game.
sets are huge. Like,
Yeah.
they talked about that in the behind the scenes, like, the amount of work that went into the TV station. It was a multi-story set because
Yep.
they had the big room where everybody was hanging, up the stairs, into the little room where they escape, like, that was all part of the build,
Yeah.
and, like, every
And, like,
dollar is on the
all the
screen.
sets were perfect. The subway station looked
Oh my
exactly
god.
like it did in the
The
game.
the subway train was even on a Dutch angle like it is
Yeah,
in the game, like,
it's
perfect,
perfect.
loved it, yeah.
Yeah, this was all excellent. Also, when they were looking for, like, the painkiller pills, that's something you rummage for in the
In the game,
game.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
all of that stuff was
yeah.
awesome to me.
And when
Uh,
Ellie does her, she does the little, like, rear naked choke on the guy, but then at
yeah,
the end, she does the knife stab into the
knifes
neck.
him. Yeah,
That's right from the
she hit
game.
triangle. She hit
Yeah.
triangle and knifed him.
Stealth kill, stealth kill.
Yeah, but this, to me, out of season 2, this is the one that felt the most like the game to
Yeah,
me.
I'd
Like, it was
agree.
more of a celebration of what happened in the game, but also we did get one major change, which is that the Dina and Ellie sex scene happens here
Right, right, right.
instead of in the weed
In the weed shop.
shop, which I think is a good change because now this feels like more of a building love story than
Mhm.
like a fling that turns into a love story. I
Yeah,
think it was a good change.
yeah, I agree with you. I think that because you have the scene in last week's episode where they're in the tent where Dina's like, I'm not gay, you're
Right,
gay, so
right.
like I don't know, and it draws, it builds on the tension of that and kind of pulls on that thread, and it feels more earned, I think, than it did
Yeah,
in the game. So
yeah, agree. But love this episode. Perfect adaptation of the game, in my opinion. I'm excited to see where we go.
only 3 left, man. It's
I
crazy. The
know.
season flying by.
I
It
don't know
makes
how
me a
I
little
feel
nervous,
about that.
but
It feels like it's just getting started and it's going to end in a
it's
weird
gonna be
spot.
over.
Yeah.
Yep. And speaking of ending in a weird spot, that's gonna do it for this video. If you like this video, go ahead and click that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Most importantly, we want to hear from you. We want your comments. Let us know what you thought of this episode, how it compares to the game, and even if you're not a gamer, just what did you think of it overall? How'd you feel about Bella Ramsey's Take on Me performance? Check out some of our other videos too while you're at it. We reviewed Thunderbolts this weekend, which is the big new MCU movie. We are reviewing The Last of Us weekly, as well as Andor season 2. So be on the lookout for all of those and so much more. And until next time, we'll see you guys in the next video.